Imagine if someone had handed you one piece of advice that would have saved you years of frustration. The secret that makes the golf swing feel natural, powerful and consistent. Think about how many shots you would have saved, how much confidence you would have built, and how much better your game would be today. But for most golfers, that advice never comes. Instead, inconsistent strikes, lack of distance, and you say to yourself, why isn't this working for me? Well, in this video, I'm going to be sharing the one piece of advice I wish a golf coach had given me 10 years ago. It's simple, it's practical, and when you understand it, everything about your golf swing becomes much easier. So let's dive in. If you are new to the channel, welcome. I'm Harry, a golf teach professional, and I started this YouTube channel to help as many golfers as I can play the game better, help them enjoy the game more, and also help them hit the shots they've always wanted. So if you would like me to help you, I'd recommend clicking that subscribe button, as there's lots of content coming out every single week, just like this one, to help you do just that. Now let me take you back 10 years ago, playing competitively quite a lot, practicing nearly every single day for hours on end, and finding it really difficult at times to play good golf. One minute I could strike the ball really well, and the other would be thin, or fat, or I could just end up topping the golf ball completely. Fast forward 10 years from now, and this is how my golf swing has changed. I'm hitting more fairways, more greens, and my ball striking has never been better. What did you notice between that swing I've just shown you there and the swings earlier? Well, it was my setup. This is the one thing I wish a golf coach had told me 10 years ago. Now look at the difference again between how far I'm standing away, how my body is positioned also. The one on the left is very tall, so when I swing and I try to do all the right things, good takeaway, good backswing, make sure I get the rotation, don't forget to shoulder the golf club and then rotate on the way through, I could go on. But I wasn't giving myself anywhere near enough room to make consistent contact. So I'd end up jumping upwards even more to try and make room, I'd end up stalling the body and then end up flipping it last minute at impact. And these reactions completely ruin the low point, the lowest part of your golf swing. And when this becomes inconsistent before and after the golf ball, it ruins the contact as well as the direction. So once I learned to stay lower in my posture, to give myself a little bit more distance away from the golf ball, keeping my arms and body in a really nice athletic position, setup position, I could allow for all the things I was trying to achieve in my golf swing take place. It was making things a lot easier, in a way that once I made my way into the downswing, I had loads of room to continue rotating the body, getting that downswing sequence underway and correctly, then allowing my hands to get ahead of the club all the way to the back of the golf ball. That was keeping the low point consistent just past the golf ball, a couple of inches or so past the golf ball, and that was making it so much easier for me to get better ball striking, and also it improved the direction because my swing was consistent every single time. But there's one question that needs answering to this. How do you get into the right setup every single time? Well, in this next half of the video, we'll talk through the exact routine I recommend to my students, which is something I rehearse still to this day, and how you can do this straight away without overcomplicating your golf game. So I recommend sticking around to the very end of the video so you learn exactly how to do it. But before we dive into this next half of the lesson, I just wanted to let you know that I do offer in-person and online lessons. If you are interested in more personalized coaching to suit your needs, there is a link in the description down below, or you can check out my website, which will be on the homepage of this YouTube channel. So let's begin with the routine of getting ourselves into the correct position. Well, the key to it is ensuring we've got enough body tilt, upper body tilt in the setup. So to do this, what I want you to do is take the club and place it on your shoulders like this. I've just got the club ever so slightly lower than my shoulders just to make sure I don't affect anything with the mic here and you listening to the video. So I've got this ever so slightly lower, but usually I'd suggest having it just right on top of the shoulders like this, with your hands either side like so. So from this position here, I've got my feet ever so slightly wider than shoulder width apart. This is for something like a mid-iron. I'm going to talk about how the wedges work and also how the woods work later on as well, just quickly so you've got that. But for this here, I'd recommend starting off with a mid-iron. I've got a 6-iron here in my hand, and I'm going to place my feet ever so slightly wider than shoulder width apart. Now, once I've done this, I want to just allow for a little bit of knee flexion, just so that they are just into a flexed position, not overly flexed here where we start to see the body move, just ever so slightly flexed. Now this is where the hard part comes in. I want you to imagine someone's got hold of your belly button or your belt buckle and they're going to push from this point back. They're going to push you back in a way that causes your hips to move back, and that encourages then, in reaction, your upper body to tilt over the golf ball. You can see here I'm not forcefully tilting my upper body towards the golf ball here because there's no movement coming from the hips. The movement has to come from the hips to allow for the upper body to move over the golf ball. Now I want you to go as low as you can until you feel a slight little bit of a stretch in your back. So if you feel like you can only go so far, that's fine. Even a little bit more than what you're used to is going to make a world of a difference compared to what your posture may have looked like before. So just go as much as you can. If you can go very low, just go until you feel a bit of a stretch in your back. Now, once you get that stretch, it's going to feel like your head is well down towards the golf ball. It's going to also look like on camera, if you were to film this routine, that your body is too low to the golf ball. But bear with me just for a second, because once we take the club from this position and we keep our body where it is, we place our hands onto the golf club with the club shaft parallel with the ground. As soon as we bring the club down, our body will naturally adjust and lift upwards ever so slightly, just to ensure the club is resting perfectly to the golf ball. Now look at the difference here in this setup compared to what we had before. My arms here are hanging directly down underneath my shoulders. I've got loads more room here between the top end of the grip and my hips, so more room between my hands and the body. But I also look more stable. I actually now look like I'm ready to hit a golf ball, whereas the one before was very much so upright, barely any room. The heel of the golf club, without noticing, is starting to lift upwards off the ground, barely any room to be able to rotate back and forth. From this position here, this is what we see a lot of the great players do. Justin Rose is a great example. He looks like every time, just before he makes his golf swing, at setup, he looks like he's ready to hit the golf ball. And that allows him to get that rotation, that beautiful rotation that we see into the backswing, downswing, and through to finish. But more importantly, you can give yourself room from this position to hit the golf ball. So just quickly recapping that routine before then I talk to you about how you can make this a consistent setup without having to go through that routine every time on the golf course. So club goes across the shoulders like this with your feet together just to begin with, then move them ever so slightly wider than shoulder width apart for a mid-iron. For a wedge, I'd recommend somewhere where the feet are pretty much just underneath your shoulder line, so as wide as your shoulders, not ever so slightly wider. If you're to use a driver, I'd go ever so slightly wider than the mid-iron. I'd go the opposite, I'd go ever so slightly wider again. For the wedges, we're going feet as wide as the shoulders. For mid-irons, we're going feet ever so slightly wider than shoulders. For driver or woods, we're going feet ever so slightly wider again. That's how I would do it, just to keep it nice and simple, but also repeatable. From here, I've got the 6 iron, so I'm going to go ever so slightly wider than shoulder width apart. I'm then going to flex my knees ever so slightly, and then I'm going to tilt from the hips until I feel that stretch in my back. Then I'm going to bring the club out in front, club parallel with the ground, gripping the golf club like so, my arms nice and straight, hanging underneath my shoulders. Then I'm just going to let the hands drop, let the club drop until it reaches the golf ball. And once I did this, it made a huge difference. But the question is, once you've got used to that routine and hit a few shots from this position, how can you do this, add this into your golf swing, your setup, without doing that routine? So you can actually implement this on the golf course. And the trick to this is staying consistent. I'd recommend hitting as many as 20, 30, 40 golf balls, going through that routine just to familiarize yourself with that setup. Then start to test the water. See if you can hit one golf shot, just going straight into your posture, your new posture, trying to get those feels straight away. A couple of good checkpoints here for me when I do this or when I started practicing this was that my hands would be underneath the shoulders, so that if I was to hang my hands like so, they'd fit right underneath the shoulders, and that's where I would be able to grip the golf club. From my eye line, I can clearly see there my feet are ever so slightly wider than shoulder width apart. And then the key checkpoint, really the main one, as I mentioned before, is the upper body, just to ensure we've got enough tilt. Well, if it feels like you're well over the golf ball, way more so than usual still, that's a good checkpoint as well. So 3 checkpoints you can have there: the tilt, the stance width, and also where your arms hang. Have a go at hitting a golf shot. And once you've hit that golf shot, have a look on video. See if you've been able to get yourself straight into that position. Have a look at where you've gone wrong or where you've gone ever so slightly different. Where it could be that the knees have bent too much, your upper body's not tilted over as much because of this. Whatever it may look like, take note of that. Go into your routine again, all the way into the routine. Just fast forwarding this ever so slightly here, and then hit a golf shot again. Once you've done that, go back to trying it without the routine. So you're going one with the routine, one without the routine, and keep going until they match perfectly. To make sure they match perfectly, use a phone or camera. That's going to make a massive difference for you at the start of your session to see the difference between using the routine and without it, at the halfway point of your session just to check and see how you're getting on with the two, and then at the end to see where you're at. Once you've done that, you should, by the end of that session, be able to get yourself set up into this position every single time, very much so comfortably, because you would have hit enough golf shots for your mind, your body to adapt to this new position, because it just makes things much easier. Now, one final thing. Once you've got used to the mid-iron, you've got to then get used to the wedge and your woods. The difference between this is very simple. It's just the length of the golf club. I like to keep it as simple as that. We don't need to worry about moving our hands too far upwards or too low or doing anything different. What I want you to imagine is if someone was out in front of you with another golf club and they were to swap that with your 6-iron. So I'll give you the example of using the 6-iron first, moving your way into the driver, and then I'll change it to the wedge afterwards. But if I was just to grip onto this 6-iron here into my new setup position, a lot lower towards the golf ball, as you can see, what I would do there is I would simply just bring my driver and place it directly next to the iron. Move the iron away. Someone's just done that for you, let's just say, or you've done that yourself, and then you can grip it like so. Everything stays the same. The only difference there is the length of the golf club. Same thing with the wedge. We can actually use the driver to start off with, once you've got a feel for that, of course, but I have already, so I can give you the example. That's where driver sits, so that's where the wedge sits. Take the driver away, that's where I sit it with the wedge. I narrow the stance a little bit more, of course, making sure it's the same width as my shoulders. They're the only two things that change. It's the length of the golf club and the width of your stance. The length of the golf club determines how far the ball is placed away. So taking a look at this screenshot here that I've asked my editor to take gives you a good idea of how it looks for the difference between how a 6-iron looks, somewhere in the middle, a wedge looks, and also the driver looks here compared to your setup. The setup, again, hasn't changed. It's just the length of the golf club. Quick bonus tip for this: if you do find that the toe end of the golf club here lifts up ever so slightly like this at the address position, that is absolutely fine. As long as you can fit a little coin underneath the toe, not too much, not too little, just a little coin, that is great, because during the golf swing anyway, the club naturally bends this way as we make our way into the downswing. So you can see there what that does to this G-force wedge here. It flattens it out to get that good contact. Thanks for watching. Hope you found that useful, and we'll see you in that video over there.